Okay, as promised, a slightly more challenging or intermediate level mat work sequence. No equipment required again for this one, just your mat and your head support. Don't forget to do a warm-up beforehand. The standing warm-up is available, and also of course don't forget to do a stretch sequence after this video. Coming down onto the mat, into your rest or start position. Find neutral spine. Good position through the upper body as well. Rest your arms beside you. Have a breath in. And then out breath to float the arms up till the fingertips point towards the ceiling. From here, out breath slowly overhead with the arms. So maintaining that softness through the rib cage, connection from the ribs to the hips at the front, in breath back. Now we'll start adding a leg stretch at the same time. So the foot sliding away as the hands come up overhead to the mat behind. Alternating legs. So as the arms are coming up overhead, making sure the rib cage doesn't flare, and as the front of the hips are opening, you're making sure that the low back doesn't pull away from the mat. So just a few here at level 1, our double leg stretch at level 1, before we bring it up to level 2. So for now, just rest the hands back down the side. Come up into tabletop, one leg at a time. Check in with your neutral spine, your flat low tummy. Your low tummy is flat back towards your spine, making sure it doesn't dome up in this tabletop position. Again, float the arms up. This is our start position for level 2. Just the arms for a few reps. Out breath them over. In breath them back. Out breath over, making sure the ribs stay connected. We're really just moving from the shoulder joints with nothing below the shoulder joints moving at all. Stillness from the whole of the lower body. Then we can add a leg stretch to make our level 3. So preparing to push away the heel towards the opposite wall. In breath back. Alternating legs. In breath back. Now remember that the higher you send the heel, so maybe more towards the top of the opposite wall, the more manageable you'll make the exercise. And if you start sending the leg more parallel to the mat, you'll make the exercise more challenging. So keep going for a few more reps. Out breath away. In breath back. Last one. Lower your arms and your feet one at a time. Good. Just check in with that position before we come to hip twist. That you're familiar with at level 1 here. But we're going to bring it up to level 3 from tabletop again. So the legs are coming up into that 90-90 position, maintaining neutral spine, arms are light. We're out-breathing the whole leg out to the side. In breath back. So it's like opening a book. The whole leg comes out to the side, but the pelvis here doesn't roll. So you keep those hip bones at the front there, shining up towards the ceiling like headlights. Allowing the hip joint to open. And keep alternating side to side for a few more. Remember, we're looking for the tension to be here in the low tummy, not in the upper body, and no straining in the low back. Remember to ask your pelvic floor to get involved, especially if you're starting to tire. Give it a little boost. One more to each side. rest down. Good. So next we'll bring it to some abdo preps. We're going to have the arms floating alongside the body. If you struggle with your neck straining when you do this type of exercise, you can slide the head cushion away, put your hands behind the back of your head instead, supporting the weight of your head when you draw forward. If you can manage, keep them alongside you, just hovering up off the mat. As you breathe out, you draw the head and shoulders off the mat, the ribs towards the hips, so you end up looking between your knees for a breath in. And then lower. Really slow these. While you're forward there taking your breath in, you can lift and then lower the arms. All on the in-breath. So you have to be quite swift with that lift and lower so you can out-breath it back down. So don't forget, of course, that you could, as you progress further with these, add weights to the hands. While you're drawn forward there, keeping that space between the ribs and the hips nice and tight. When you lift the arms up and down with weights in your hands as well, you're really loading up the upper body, putting more demand on your abdominals to hold you forward in that position. But crucially, just make sure that you never tip your pelvis back into your low back space. You're maintaining neutral spine. This is your upper body coming towards your lower body, not your pelvis tipping back. Make this the last. And then rest and give your knees a little hug in for a stretch. You can also let your head gently turn from side to side, just ease out any tension that might have built up in your neck while you were doing that. And then we are going to take the head cushion away for our next exercise, our shoulder bridges. Reposition, but with the heels a bit closer to the bottom. We'll start off with a couple at level 1, just tipping back, peeling up and away. Segmental movement through the spine, bringing you up into that high lift. Out, breath down. So just an opportunity here to mobilise through the spine, to get those glutes engaging before we progress the exercise. Lovely. So for our progression, for our intermediate level shoulder bridge, once we're up here and have had a breath in to hold, try coming up onto the toes and extending one knee out. In-breath it back and then come down. So this movement here is on the out-breath. You make sure you pause at the top for a breath in. And then you out-breath to straighten the other knee. Keep the thighs parallel and down. But most of all, try and make sure you keep the pelvis level, so it doesn't dip or tip side to side when you look for that one leg bridge. Now you can keep going like that, bringing the pelvis down between every repetition, or you can try and stay up and lift side to side. As long as you're able to keep this pelvis high and level. Breath out, in, breath back. Keep the arms light on the back, be careful not to push through them. If you feel that your hamstrings might be starting to cramp, definitely time to have a break. Lower the pelvis back down again and reset. Because the Hamstrings will kick in when the glutes are tiring. Or of course if you're feeling it straining in your back. Otherwise, make these your last couple, one to each side. Use an out breath to segmentally replace your spine to the mat. Good, and that's us done on our backs. We'll come over onto the side. Alright, we'll start with some lift and lower. So we're going to start with the legs out straight. The whole lower body is in one long line. So from the fingertips to the shoulders, hips and toes. Length through both sides of the waist, you've got that little space created underneath, the top hips pointing straight up at the ceiling. No hand support if you can manage without. Gentle tuck on the chin. Out breath the top leg up. In breath it back down. So we're looking for the leg to come straight up towards the ceiling. Don't allow it to drift forward of the midline of the body. Keep it back using those glutes behind your hip. The toes can point on the way up, so like good toes on the way up. Flex the ankle, bad toes on the way down. Keep going. Make sure all the movement comes from the hip joint. Okay, so you'll know when you get to the top. If you go beyond that, you'll have a tendency to tip into that waist space and lose it. So try and maintain that waist space. Also try and make sure you keep that top shoulder nice and open through its front. Drawn back and down away from your ear. Last couple. And rest that one. Good, let the knees bend. Just to give that leg a little rest and a stretch if you want to, before we come on to our next side lying exercise. So this time we'll leave the lower leg bent, but we'll take the top leg out straight for our side kicks. We're just bringing the top leg up to hip height, having a breath here to prepare, and then out breath it forward. So you're hinging from the hip to slide the whole leg forward and back. Be careful to maintain your neutral spine so you don't round the back off here, and as it comes back you don't arch at the back. So out breath forward, keeping the leg at hip height. It's like you're sliding it across a tabletop. Out, pointing the toes, in, the heel leads back. Keep going for a couple more. You may get a little bit of hip extension there, as long as you don't arch into your lower back. When you're feeling that you could challenge yourself more with this, you can start straightening the lower leg out a bit, so it offers you less support. It'll be more challenging, so you'll have to focus in more on this low tummy control. Well done, make this the last one. And rest. Again, give that leg a stretch. And we'll have a push up into sitting. Okay, so in sitting, let's have a go at saw. A whole body mobilising and stretching exercise. I like to do it sitting on a small block, so you can have a little cushion or a folded towel underneath your bottom. It helps when you're sitting with your legs out to tip your pelvis slightly forward and give you that length that you need to sit up with a good spine position. So grow tall through the crown of your head. Good. We're going to take the arms out to the side. Keep the knees pointing up towards the ceiling so that they don't roll in. Shoulder tops away from the ears, length through the back of the neck. Have a breath in as you twist. Out as you reach towards the opposite toes. Up and rotate back. So you're moving on every element of the breath with this one. It's very dynamic. Check the shoulders don't creep up in between. Upper back mobility, the lower body stretch. In breath while you twist, out breath while you reach. In breath to come up, out breath untwist. Last one here. And rest. Good. We bring it down to the other end of the mat. Everything that you need for your side lying, your hip exercises on this side. Starting with the legs out straight. Into position for our lift and lower. When you're ready. Out breath up. In breath down. So no set number. Work in your own time with your own breath rate. Remembering to try and breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. Keep going for a couple more. Finishing up with this one. Lovely. Let the knees bend. Okay, so when that leg's had a little rest, we'll take it to our our side kicks. So with as much bend as you need on the lower leg, but if you're progressing, try taking it out a little bit straighter. The top leg is straight in line with the upper body. Bring it up to hip height. Starting on your out breath, sliding forward from the hip joint. In breath back. Out. In. So careful not to roll forward or back through the pelvis. Remembering to try and keep your low back neutral. Your upper body relaxed, open through the top shoulder. And all the tension to control your position should be here. Keep going for a few more. It does ache, keeping that hip held up, especially after all those lifts and lowers. Last couple. And bring it back to rest. Lovely. Okay, so we'll bring it down onto our tummies for some swimming level 3. So with swimming legs, the idea is to try and lift the leg straight from the mat. So you're opening up the front of the hip. You'll notice that mine doesn't lift very far. You may be able to lift higher. But the important thing is that you keep length through your low back. Move some equipment. The arms are up overhead, shoulder tops away from the ears, length through the back of the neck. Length also through the low back, so you've got that gentle tuck on your tailbone. Your legs come to hip width apart. And we're going to be lifting through one arm and the opposite leg on the out breath. So take a breath to prepare. Out breath, the arm and the opposite leg up off the mat. We are alternating with every out breath. Aiming to try and get the front of the thigh to hover. Trying to keep the legs straight as you can. Always maintaining length, so the crown of the head and the tailbone are working away in opposite directions. Let's finish off with a hold and lower. You out, breath up, hold while you breathe in breath lower. One more to each side, out, breath up. Breathe into those lower ribs, open them up, and lower. Last one. And lower. Great. Have a push back. You're going to come to our knees with the toes tucked under, knees underneath the hips. This time the hands are forward of the shoulders. We're going to do our leg pulling prone prep 2. So it's like a plank prep. The hips start off over the knees. And once we've lifted to hover the knees, they slide forward to bring you into a full plank. Stay there for a breath in. Shoulders stay away from the ears. And then come back to the hover and then lower. Breath in, out, breath to hover, slide forward. Once you're there, breath in, back and down. Keep going if you can. Hover, slide. Looking between your hands. Last one. Great. Have a little rest. So the last exercise that we'll do today on the mat are some push-ups. So you can do any version of push-ups that you prefer to do. So you can do them in a box shape here, from simplest form, trying to keep the elbows in, hinging from the hips to lower the upper body down. Or you can come to your modified push-up position here, lowering the hips, keeping them in a strong position, diagonal line from the shoulders to the knees. And push up. So I'll stick with you here with modified push-ups. But of course, if you want to come into a full plank and do some full press-ups or full push-ups, then you work away. So after this one, we're going to try coming down for a count of 3. So it's like we're in a lift going down 3 levels. 1, 2, 3, push back up. 2, 2, 3, push up. We're aiming for 6. Great, only 2 to go. Last one. And now you can sit back and rest. Have a lovely stretch. And don't forget to do either the sitting or the lying stretch sequence after this.